Coming up on today's show, the team behind the brand new ethical non-monogamy documentary, More Than Monogamy, that I am honored to be featured in. Dillon Birdsall is an award-winning documentary filmmaker and content creator and the founder of All the Birds Productions. Urvashi and Kama are award-winning creators of erotic films and the owners of the Spark Erotic Film Company. Welcome to Loving Without Boundaries, where we hear inspiring stories, share actionable advice, and talk about the challenges and the joys of ethical non-monogamy and polyamory. I'm your host, Kitty Chambliss. Coming up, my conversation with Dillon, Urvashi, and Kama. Welcome back to Loving Without Boundaries, where I am incredibly honored and excited to be here with the creative team that put together the documentary More Than Monogamy, a documentary about polyamory, ethical non-monogamy, and open relationships. And I'm here with Dillon, who I've gotten to meet before virtually and in person, as well as Urvashi and Kama. And it is a delight to see you all here, to get to meet you virtually. I could not be happier. So welcome to the show. So for folks who may not be familiar with the documentary, I'm just going to read a little bit of what you have on your website, if that's okay.
Of course, please.
So More Than Monogamy is a feature-length documentary about non-monogamy, polyamory, ethical non-monogamy, open relationships, and swinging, designed to be both educational and entertaining. This documentary explores why alternative relationship structures work for some people and why they aren't for everyone. Featuring interviews with leading experts in relationship psychology and intimacy, the film breaks down common myths surrounding non-monogamous relationships while highlighting the importance of communication, consent, and emotional honesty. So I have lots of questions, but first, maybe I'll start with, how do you all know each other? And just let you all decide who wants to go first and share.
I'll start us off. Hello, Kitty. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
I met Urvashi and Kama after winning Best Documentary Feature at CineKink. They were there with an award-winning short of theirs as well at CineKink, and we became fast friends. They really enjoyed my documentary, and I really enjoyed their film, and we got to talking.
That's amazing. And how long ago was that, did you say?
God, 2018.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't feel that long ago, but that's almost a decade now. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing. And maybe one thing I'll share here is that I think I'll just read a little bit about what it says on your website about the creators. Is that okay? Sure. So More Than Monogamy is created by a small 3-person dedicated independent film team and a joint production from Dillon Birdsall of All the Birds Productions, who previously made V-Card the film, and Spark Erotic creators of other award-winning films such as Air and The Perfect Place. So yeah, so that's just a nice bow we can put on all of that. So really amazing and lovely to hear just how you all got to know each other. Do either of the two of you, or Urvashi or Kama, want to add anything to that?
No, that's pretty good. I mean, that's how it was. And I think from there, the big thing that sealed it was Dillon decided to come out and do an interview of Kama and I and all our crew, the Spark Erotic crew. And that was really, I think it really sealed our friendship, was doing that wonderful work with you, Dillon.
Yeah, I had another small YouTube shorts documentary where I interviewed people who had interesting jobs. And Kama and Urvashi were the first two people I was like, oh, they make erotica. I think that's a pretty interesting job to talk about. Yep. So I was lucky enough on the show I worked on, You Do You, with my very close friend Alex Bostic. We had a phenomenal week where we actually followed them as they were creating one of their short films, and it was a treat. It was really awesome. It was a great experience for me.
I just went and watched that again yesterday just to refamiliarize myself with it, because I was sending it to someone else, and it's a capturing of a moment in time that was really kind of cool. You get to see us planning a future film. You guys came and kind of filmed a photo shoot and a film production, and then we had great conversations as well. So our friendship has grown over the years, predominantly just because of our shared interest in filmmaking and having similar interests and such. And then a collaboration was a natural thing for us to move into whenever the stars aligned.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. That's really awesome. And I didn't ask this ahead of time, so I hope it's okay to ask here. How are you like I identify as polyamorous and heteroflexible, part of the kink and BDSM community. How are you all identifying yourselves in relation to the documentary More Than Monogamy in a way that you feel comfortable sharing, if I may ask?
So for me, I would identify as polyamorous, but that has shifted for me over time in terms of what that actually means to me. And so I think, both our relationship with ourselves and also with others is always in a state of flux. And so I've found myself, expanding and contracting kind of through time. And where I see myself now is different than I was, even 6 months ago. So.
Okay.
I'll echo that. I feel that I have straddled many places. I feel like right now I'm kind of more a monogamous bent for myself in life. I'm very much open and an ally to other people and trying to make safe spaces for anyone and how they express and what they feel. So yeah, I guess I've been kind of flexible in that as well. But right now I'm finding myself more in a more of a monogamous state, I would guess.
I think I'm basically just open. Like, I'm open to the idea of a swinging relationship. I'm open to the idea of a polyamorous relationship. I'm not necessarily concerned with the dynamic as long as all of us are agreeing that it works for us.
Yeah.
All about consent. I love that. Yeah. And it's interesting we're even having this particular part of the conversation because I was thinking about this earlier today, maybe knowing our interview is coming up, but I definitely identify as polyamory by orientation, like that's part of who I am. Yet I was in another relationship outside of my marriage, Dillon, when we met that I'm no longer in. And so at the moment, I'm kind of operating behaviorally more monogamish.
Sure, yeah.
Because I'm mainly with my husband and on the dating apps, but I don't currently have a super special someone extra. So behaviorally, I'm monogamish, but I still orient towards polyamory. Just like if somebody's gay, do they stop becoming gay because they're not in any relationship?
Yeah.
No.
Well, I think one of the great
That's a perfect answer.
I think one of the great quotes that Justin gives in the movie is actually about how your relationships are going to change over time. Like sexuality, relationships, all these things it's not like they're in a fixed state your entire life. They grow, they change, they morph into something bigger or less than what they were before. And that, if you as a person can kind of be open to that idea of change, I think you'll be a lot less afraid when change happens. Like you won't be as so concerned about how it's going to affect you and more willing to accept the change as it comes your way.
Did anyone else want to add anything to that?
I was going to playfully ask what you were doing on Friday.
You know what's funny? I was literally just telling some friends that I don't have any plans Fridays. So, I mean, that's what's been fun too, is in this monogamish state, I've actually been deepening my platonic female friendships, which has also been fun to kind of create space for that as well. But I still view that along the spectrum because I feel that I can have deeper friendships, whatever their gender are, as can my husband, deeper than sometimes when people are in very, very traditional monogamous relationships. Jealousy can raise its head and agreements can get broken even in regards to friendships, which is interesting too.
Yeah.
No, and I agree with you. Right now in my life, I'm really pulling into my female relationships too. And I talk about this love affair I'm having with my girlfriends, even though I'm not bisexual or we're having sexuality. I do feel like there's this amazing love affair that's going on. And it's just been wonderful. So I agree with that.
That's lovely.
I think the world just needs more love in general nowadays, right? Like it's so bad that if you can find deeper personal relationships that don't necessarily involve sexuality, people are yearning for that now, maybe more than ever. Like people need it.
I 100% agree. So my next question is and I'm sure Dillon, you and I spoke about this on our podcast interview, but now that we have the whole team, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what inspired you all to join forces to create the More Than Monogamy documentary. Like, was there a light bulb moment, or did you see a need, or what was? Tell me a little bit more about that.
So Dillon and I, or Dillon and I think had the same kind of thing happen around the same kind of time. Very early into 2020, I was contacted by I don't even know who really, just an individual from Great Britain who asked if we would be willing to be part of this whole thing that he was trying to do about the swinging world and basically about the lifestyle to educate people. And he was going to do it in series, an episodic series. So we collected, I would say, was it Kama, about close to 400 hours worth of footage that we sent in, of interviews, of things that we had done before, of our films, of all sorts of stuff. And then Dillon at the same time had this idea that he really wanted to do a film about the lifestyle, informing people about the basics, making people kind of all the general questions people would have would get answered. So we decided to do the interviews together while we were collecting, Kama and I were collecting our interviews for the show in Great Britain. And unfortunately, the show in Great Britain just disappeared.
Oh.
So Kama and I put our stuff on the back burner. And then about a year or so later, Dillon, you contacted us and said, hey, I've been working on mine.
That's exactly how it happened. I knew I was going to be interviewing these guys for the movie initially. And it just was so much kismet that they were also working on a project that was in tandem. So Urvi's got this incredible network of people that we kind of reached out to talk to, that she wanted to get some better footage with. So it just made a lot of sense when we were both working on our own projects individually to team up, and it was wonderful. But when theirs kind of seemed like it was going to fall through, I was hitting a really hard point in my creative outlet where I was like, I didn't know where the movie was going. And anybody who makes movies will tell you that you're going to hit kind of like roadblocks sometimes with your creative pursuits. And that's when you really, if you're lucky, you turn to people you trust, other people to look at it, to kind of hopefully break through that kind of creative block you're having. And it just so happened that at the same time theirs was falling through and I was having my block, we really decided to go like, why don't we make this the best documentary that we can as a team? And like, let's put all three of our best foots forward to try and make this documentary the documentary that we want to see. And it was just really lucky that that happened. Of course, it sucks that the other project fell through. That was a lot of work for them. I feel really bad. But ultimately, I'm so proud of the product that we've produced that I think ultimately it was maybe a blessing in disguise.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it was an alignment at that point in time of efforts going in different directions and such. And we had teamed up on doing the interviews. And I think we shot, gosh, like 45 plus interviews. It was a lot.
Wow.
And so we have a lot of content material. And as anybody will tell you, doing documentary films, you have to watch all of that, and you have to go through and tag and figure out what you like and all that. So a lot of that preliminary work was kind of done. When Dillon reached out and said, hey, I need some help on this. Let's team up and do this. We were at a place where that was very attractive to us because we, had put a lot of work in already and didn't see an outlet for it. But on top of that, we had the advantage of, Dillon being able to drive up from Albuquerque and really kind of live with us in residence. So this was done very collaboratively. The first meetings we had a huge whiteboard that we set up, lots of sticky notes, trying to figure out where we're going with this. And we hit on some really creative ideas of how to move into the film. Originally, there was not the couple that you see in the film.
Oh.
It was mostly just going to be interviews and kind of stock footage and graphics and all that. And we decided that we needed a proxy for the audience, that it would be really wise to have a couple that's kind of experiencing all of this and being able to ask questions and get responses and all of that. And that was kind of a huge breakthrough for it. So we contacted a couple friends of ours in California, and they came out and, we rehearsed and filmed all of those aspects. But that really became kind of the string throughout the whole video, in the film that ties together all of the interview segments. And, hats off to Dillon on an editing standpoint, because to be able to, track what each interview is saying and then relate that to what the couple's questions were and how to play that all out. There's some serious brain damage that can happen with that kind of filmmaking.
And there
Dillon,
is.
Dillon and I sat down, and actually I had everyone's interviews that we picked. We sat down and watched Lord knows how many hours of the interviews, including, all the professionals like you, Kitty. And then we picked certain people we thought were really good. And then I had a program, put it all out in the script. And then I highlighted everything that Dillon said, here's a question. I highlighted absolutely everything for him so that when he was handed that, here's everything under this question that somebody answers. Here's that. And it was just a huge amount of stuff that he then had to say, okay, do I like that clip? Do I not like that clip? And to pick the perfect ones for the questions that I had pulled that he'd given me. That was a lot, Dillon.
No, it was like the beautiful thing about the documentary, and I'm really proud of this because coming from my previous documentary, that was a collaboration as well, but it was very much me. This was really a collaboration with people who cared about it as much as I did. And that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing when you have people who are as dedicated as you are to telling a good story. And the movie wouldn't be what it is today without Kama and Urvi's input. Like the movie exists because of all of our efforts. And that's something that, like, whether or not the movie becomes ultra successful, it is a success in my eyes because we did it. Like we really put the balls to the wall and made something that took a lot of effort. Like this was years of our lives.
Yeah.
That got turned into a movie that I think even, 10 years down the road, we're going to look back on and go, there's a lot of good info in that documentary.
There really is.
There's still stuff that you can use, even if the technology changes, if, whatever the world is in 10, 15 years, the core principles of communication, consent, being kind, being compassionate, all of those things are infused in our film. And that's because all of us really cared. We were really invested in it.
That film conveyed a message of permission, of saying, hey, look, it's okay. First of all, that there are other things out there, but also it's okay to be curious. It's okay to explore, which is like we said, sex education is nothing in this country, but the sex education you get is basically do nothing ever until you're married.
Right.
No.
Yeah. And you may have heard me talk about jokingly that I'm a recovering Catholic, and I'm about to turn 57, right? So I was learning that, a half a century ago. And yeah, I think that things have not really gotten much better. So before I even go any further, just hats off to all of you. I think the documentary is absolutely outstanding. I think you did an amazing job. It is an incredible asset for the world to have, not just the wider community here in the non-monogamous world or those curious about it, just as a educational tool. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the hours that you all put in collectively.
No, thank you, Kitty, and everybody who participated in the movie. Like, just the same way that the movie wouldn't exist without our inputs, the movie doesn't exist without your interviews, right? Like your insights, your ability to convey that these, pretty complex ideas about relationships, we're, especially, I know I speak for all three of us, we are so in love with the people we got to be in the movie. Like some of these interviews are gold.
There was one thought that I had, Kitty, that I just wanted to add. And your Catholicism aside, there's been a lot of repression in sexuality. There's also been the flip side of the coin, which is a lot of hypersexualization. There's sexuality that's used to sell every product under the sun. And, people are sexually active probably before they should be as far as kids. And, so there's both of these things going on. And I looked at them as two dynamics that are really out of whack. Either you're really repressed and can't be open and share, or you're so jazzed up in this category of energy that, it's making decisions that lead you down paths you probably shouldn't go and such. And so what I'm very proud about the film is I think it presents a very balanced viewpoint of how to come from wherever you're at and start to explore while still having some boundaries and protections in place to do so intelligently and wisely. And so I'm very proud of it for that reason, because it isn't prurient. It doesn't move into the zone of just trying to be tittillating. But at the same time, it shows possibilities, and that's really engaging. And I think as a primer for someone who, says, hey, I'm interested in this, I don't think there's anything like it that exists. I think it's a unique vision at this point.
I think that was so beautifully stated and very articulate. You should have been one of the people interviewed. But no, that was a great point that you made. And I really appreciate that. And I'm glad that you shared that. And I couldn't agree more. And I absolutely also am in agreement that there isn't something like this that exists. And I have such a debt of gratitude for you all to put it together. And so glad that you did. And that kind of also brings me to one of my next questions. I love the idea that you had that couple there, as you said, to be a proxy for the audience. So I'm curious how you went about the casting process, whether that was for the couple in the documentary, as well as finding the experts to interview. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that process.
Well, the couple were, so the young man is someone who has filmed with us before and has done a few films with us before. And I knew that he had enough acting ability that he could handle it. And then we actually had someone else in line to play his girlfriend slash wife or whatever. And she pulled out literally the night before or something, or like not even maybe
basically,
the week before.
yeah.
About
so
3 or 4 days before. So
yeah. So
Wow.
luckily he had his girlfriend with him, and she was okay, and she did it, and we were so proud of her for the work she did, because this was a brand new thing for her, just to go over in front of the camera, lines and act and do that sort of stuff. She's been on stage before and been in front of people before, but nothing like this, and so she was like, whoa, and she did it, and we were so proud, and we did not, reach out to professional actors or anything like that. We just didn't have the budget for anything really. So we used the talent that we had around us to do that. And again, as Dillon said, I have a huge network out here of people within the lifestyle, in all aspects of the lifestyle, that were so excited and willing. And Denver is also a town that is incredibly open, incredibly friendly, incredibly articulate, wants to share, wants to, educate people, give people the information for these things. And then Dillon was amazing at finding our experts. Dillon, I don't know how you did that.
A lot of research.
Thank you.
A lot of research, guys. So to find experts, much like I think anybody who is looking to do interviews, your first step, of course, is Google, right? Like I don't know everybody on this subject, so it just takes a lot of footwork. You got to look up people. You have to also like watch what they say as well. It can't just be like, here's a recommendation, and then you find out like they're a terrible person. You actually have to go through just a little bit of searching. And luckily, I put together a list of about 20 interview subjects who I thought would not only give great answers, but would probably be willing to do it. And we were very lucky to get about half of those. So
wow.
it was really great in that regard.
Yeah, I remember even when I heard the lineup of some of the other folks that were part of your interview subjects, I was like, ooh, Kevin's been on my podcast and I know Dr. Liz Powell, so I was like super excited, Well,
the wonderful thing about either your podcast and also the sexuality space in general is that, like, for the most part, it's still small enough that you don't have to look too far, right? Like there are people who've been doing great work for years, and it's very easy to find them sometimes. And then, of course, other ones you have to do a little bit more research on. But like, if they're showing up repeatedly, like Justin LaMiller, right? Like very noted, been on multiple different documentaries, written books, is a member of the Kinsey Institute. It's like, I think he would be good, right? Like it's a kind of a no-brainer to get him if he's willing to do it.
Right. That's amazing. Well, you did a wonderful job, and that is just curious what that process was like. So this question is for all of you, whoever wants to go first. What was the most rewarding part about this whole process, and contrasting that with maybe what's the most challenging part of putting this documentary together?
I think, honestly, the most rewarding part was finishing it because it had just, been such a long process, and, every little piece had to be worked on and put into place. And, as you get to the end of a process like this, it can be very challenging because you're like, oh, I just want it to be done. And I remember some of the very last technical problems that Dillon and I were running into in terms of mastering the film and such. It's just like you're pulling your hair out, trying to just get over the finish line. And we were rushing to finish it for the October or September premiere that we did in Denver. And, we had to source equipment to project in this space. And, there's all sorts of stuff. And so to finally get to the point where it's completion lets you kind of breathe a sigh of relief and say, wow, okay, it's complete. And now we can work on spreading the word on it and such. So that's the most challenging part. The most rewarding part, really, though, is feeling that we've created something that has, a legacy to it and longevity. And what you said earlier, Dillon, I think that people could watch this in 5 or 10 years, and the core content of it is still very valuable. There might be some stylistic changes, but it's not tied to a specific time period, or, it's not only going to be active for the next 6 months and then be obsolete. And so to me, it's nice to have completed something that took this much time that we feel will also have longevity to it.
I would say that's probably a lot of what I feel too, is that I am so proud and excited to have put something out there that really has impact. Gives really good information. I think is very solid. As Kama said, it is something that's not going to lose its impact in the next few years at all. It's something that can be shared. It is, educational tool is you can show it to younger people too and feel very confident in that as you're teaching them more about things in the world. About their sexuality and where they could, fit, or especially since there are so many questions now. It's not just this male female idea. There's so many more options that it's really great to have things like this. To me, also, what was truly rewarding was sitting down with people and letting them tell their stories and having them talk and watching the power of telling someone's story come out, which is very beautiful. So I think those two things are super rewarding for me. One is to give people the opportunity to tell their story, even if it never got out on this, to have an audience to listen to all these people's beautiful stories. The honor of having that, receiving that gift from them. And the second part really is what Kama said, is to have put something out there in the world that we really believe can make an impact for people.
That's awesome. And then since you still have the mic, Urvashi, what would you say, from your perspective, was the most challenging part of the journey?
Oh my, I think some of it really, I would have to say, was truly the technical part. I think everything else was a lot of fun with. It went pretty easily. The interviews went, everything like that. The technical part was hard because since we were all in individual places doing certain things together and different places we did interviews, different lighting, different sound. Oh, the sound was unreal. Trying to get the sound to match. I think it was really the technical things because I think the project itself was such a joy and we all had such a heart for it that none of the actual putting together of it, other than the technical stuff, was difficult for any of us, I'd say, or felt overwhelming or compounding or like,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we had very few disagreements along the way. There were a few times where we were hitting our head up against it, where somebody had one opinion and the other. That's filmmaking. It's like when you have a creative team on something, you're going to have that sort of action taking place. But it was never anything we couldn't resolve or work through. And I think the final product, is the result of that kind of melding of those things.
Yeah, and the stuff that we butted heads on it was all in service of making it better.
Yeah.
And we just had different ideas on how it would get better, but we always found a nice middle ground.
We did. It was easy. We worked well together. I
would say the most challenging thing, and this will always be true for any creative art form, was money. Like what Urvi and Kama are talking about, these challenges aren't necessarily challenges when you have enough money to have somebody else fix them. When you're a team of 3 people and you're doing it by yourself, it's very frustrating and very hard. And there is reward in that, but there is also a certain point where you're very much like, I just fucking wish that this would just work. Please, for the love of fucking God. Like, I am just so tired of looking at this fucking thing. So that's like the challenging part. It's not so much that we couldn't rise to that challenge. We did. It's just more a matter of if we had money to send it to somebody else to do the mixing and mastering and the small fixes. Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful? Wouldn't that just be the best? But the most rewarding thing, I think Kama and Urvi are right. But for me, the most rewarding thing is getting to, like I think I said before, getting to work with 2 people who cared as much as I did. Like, that can be rare in the film industry and the arts in general, right? Like most people are not going to necessarily care as much as you do. And it's always cool when you get to work with people who want to share in your vision, and not only share in your vision, but make that vision better, make it stronger.
All of your care and attention to detail and your resilience and perseverance to get this thing completed. I mean, that really comes through in the work. And even the length and breadth of it. I mean, it really has a lot to it. And that brings me to my next question, which is, who would you say, like, when you think about this in your heart, like, who is the target audience? What are you hoping they would gain from watching it, or their takeaways? And before you answer, I'll share with you that I've only watched it once so far. And I was hanging out with one of my platonic friends who is kind of non-monogamy adjacent. She is in a monogamous relationship, but they're not actively having other partners at the moment, but she's very accepting of that concept. They kind of accidentally moved into with each other. It's a funny story with that. And we watched it together with a glass of wine, and I thought, I have no idea how she's going to react to this. I don't know how I'm going to react to this. I have no idea what this thing looks like. You know, even in the first couple of minutes, the first time I saw myself on TV, I was like, oh, it's like, stop breathing, you know. But overall, I was just really impressed with the general overall vision and product and what you all came up with. So it was interesting from my perspective to watch it and to watch my friend watch it. And I just haven't really had the time to sit down with my husband, and maybe there's a part of me that's afraid to. But I still was very happy with it, but I maybe needed a moment before I could see myself on TV again. But I'd love to hear from you all. What would you say is your vision for who this is for? Like maybe age groups, or, you know, in your perfect world, who would watch this?
My goal, when I was originally setting out to do it on my own before bringing Urvashi and Kama into this, was I wanted to make a documentary that I could show to anyone about the things I was interested in. I wanted to be able to show it to my grandmother as well as people in the lifestyle. I wanted it to be educational enough that people would walk away from it not going like when they watch like Real Sex on HBO and going like, oh, wasn't that so weird? Like people doing that stuff. I wanted people to walk away from our film going, wow, I really feel like I understand this better. It might not be for me, or I might not want to join that lifestyle, but I get why people want to be a part of it. And luckily, Kama and Urvashi wanted that exact same thing. All of us wanted it to be this kind of, I don't want to say like a beacon of like civility in kind of what could be an over-sexualized space. But most of the documentaries that we've seen up to this point on this subject matter do often lean more into look at how titillating this is instead of look at how this could fit into your life. Look at how it might strengthen your relationships. Look at how it might bring you more joy than being part of the monogamous construct. But also, here are other things that might completely fall apart for you if you join this lifestyle. Like there was a knowledge that we needed to present the good and the bad when we made this documentary, because it isn't just a bundle of roses. So that was the goal. It was to be able to show it to anybody, but more than anything for the vanillas in the audience to go, oh, I get it.
Yeah, I would agree. And it is neither a cautionary tale or, you know, a off the wall, you know, kind of titillating thing,
or a full endorsement either.
No, it's very balanced, and I think that anybody watching it could say, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'm excited by this, but yeah, there are things to consider. There are boundaries to maintain and discuss and all of that." And so, I think it's a very responsible film, and at the same time, it's an exciting film, because if anybody has interest in moving in this direction, they're now equipped with an understanding that they may not have had before that allows them to make decisions in a wiser way.
And I feel like this film, as Dillon does, I want it to be for anybody, your grandma, your cousin, the 18-year-old down the block. You know, I want this to be for everyone, and especially for heteronormative people who've not had this information, considering that we're so tight-lipped about sexuality. I wanted this film to be incredibly accessible, which I believe we have made it. Like Dillon said, I did not want it to have an ounce of sexuality in it, because it can get so salacious out there. And then there's a lot of people who are curious. We are curious about sexuality, whether you are completely heteronormative, and people are curious. And so this is a subject that people are curious about. So I wanted to put something out, as did Dillon and Kama, that was very responsible, educational, accessible, as we've said before, that word, and really to anyone. But to me, it's more not necessarily for the lifestyle people, because nice to get the accolades or the affirmation. But what I really wanted to do, and what I believe these two did as well, was to bring it to the broader world, to the people who are outside and look and go, exactly this thing of, why would I ever want to do that? Or these people must be freaks, or there must be something wrong with them to do this. Here's a more sane, educated look from real people about what they think and believe.
I think one of the main questions that we wrote on our big whiteboard when we were, doing our planning sessions on the editing was, what's the documentary that we wish we had seen when we first got into the lifestyle?
Yep.
That was like a big guiding force for us, in a sense that, like, if we, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when we were first getting into these spaces, what do we wish we had seen? And I think that was a good a good starting point for us.
And I also don't want to lose, sight of the fact that it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
Really playful.
It's playful. There's comedy in it. Whether it's some of the things that the interviewers say, Billy was a crack up on certain things.
Yeah.
But
that's
it's
a shirt alone.
Yeah, every time I show the clip to somebody, they always mention the shirt. But to me, it's also a fun movie to watch, and that's important. We decided to include that comedy and lightheartedness in it and such because there's many documentaries that sort of suffer by their own pain of seriousness. That you're watching it and you're just like, oh, God. But this, I think, has a good balance. There's enough in each category, but it does have a fun theme throughout it that makes it exciting.
For fuck's sake, we have an E&M fairy in it, who's our narrator.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I totally agree with everything that you all said, and I believe you absolutely achieved that. And I love that question that you were asking yourselves, like, what do we wish we would have seen? And it brings me to another question I have, which is I've definitely given lots of talks across the country at universities as well as E&M type of conferences. And my favorite talk I've ever given so far was at a college at University of North Florida during their sex week, mainly towards the LGBTQ plus community. And it was a 3-hour workshop very much related to what you all covered in the film. And a beautiful moment for me was in the intermission, a young person, maybe about 20 years old, maybe 19, came up to me with tears in their eyes, just saying, "Thank you so much. I thought there was something wrong with me. I feel so seen. I feel so understood. And like, this is a lifestyle that I could really step into. And I really appreciate you." And so as I was watching the film, I totally agree with you that I love the accessibility is part of your vision. Like, wow, what if like in sex education classes, say in college, I actually took a sexuality education class in college. Like I would have loved to have seen this in collge, right?
Yes. That is a thought. How to get it into colleges. Kama and I had a film of Spark Erotic get into I think it was an Ivy League school they used in their sexuality program in their master's program. Was it?
Yeah,
Kama?
It was in a sexuality master's program, and they approached us about using one of our films because they thought it an excellent example of erotica that was done, with style and class and respect and all of this. And so they approached us and said, can we show this film to our graduate students as part of, and we said, yes, we didn't charge them for it or anything. And so I have a pretty educational fair use kind of, thinking is if people approach us and want to use this film within education, I think that we should be very open to it and will be.
Oh, we would love it. Yeah, we would be so happy to do that. That would be so exciting.
Yeah, if you're listening to this podcast and you are in the educational space or you work for a college, please reach out to us. Like we would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
And Kitty, if you want to use it in your things, please.
Yeah. I mean, you're in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. No, I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so well done for that platform, including the entertaining playfulness of it. So it doesn't also feel like boring or like you're reading a textbook or something like that.
It's not film strips in history class.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, as an educator, and I've been an educator for years as well, I have found that one of the best ways to get students or people to go along with your concept or a new perception or a paradigm shift is with humor. And people tend to take with humor and hook onto it, and they tend to retain longer too. It gets better. They tend to open their minds more. You can get access in better, and they retain it, and they're more open for the information. So, humor.
I absolutely agree. I think people learn better when they're being playful and building community and laughing. I couldn't agree more. Just a few more questions and then a kind of a fun one to end us with that I'm curious about. Was there anything that surprised any of you through the process, whether it was during production or maybe after production, that comes to mind? Whether it was a happy surprise or a not happy surprise?
Well, I was surprised when one of our actresses pulled out 3 days before we were. That was a surprise that
was stressful.
That I did not love. Did not love that surprise. I think the biggest surprise for me was, and this is something that I will take when I'm making more documentaries. We talked about how we had all of these other interviews, and I think on the face of it, especially if you're a young filmmaker or a starting documentarian, you might think that you need to get all of the footage in the world. And let me be the first to tell you, you don't. Like, you need to do what we kind of realized was getting the gold, getting the experts, getting these people who had the best answers. And admittedly, you might not find that in only a couple of interviews, but you don't necessarily need to do 75 interviews either, because you're going to kind of exhaust yourself. So I think maybe not the biggest surprise, but I think the biggest takeaway for me, especially as a filmmaker, was like, no, I think I could have stopped sooner. I was afraid that we didn't have the footage that we needed, but I was wrong. We did have the footage we needed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that some of that was because our outline for the film, or in the beginning stages, the films that we were doing, wasn't really defined. And so we were kind of going through a process. And as Urvashi said, we provided a cathartic opportunity for a lot of people that we did interviews for. You know, when somebody sets up lights and recorders and cameras and such, and gives you a chance to say what you're saying, I think we did a lot of good that never made the film. And that's cool too. You know, there's somewhat of a social karmic credit that goes with that as well. But we were knocking around a little bit at the beginning of the process because we weren't exactly sure what we were looking for. You know, we had a list of questions and we had people from various, places. But if we knew what we knew in retrospect, we would have been able to dial that in. And Dillon's right, do a lot less. So that speaks to the pre-planning of a movie, that can be very helpful to kind of focus.
Well, we didn't have at the beginning, like I said, that we had all this information from Great Britain of what they wanted us to do. So we had their vision in mind, not necessarily our vision in mind when we started. So they gave us pages of questions to ask, and their thing was they wanted the volume. But Dillon is right. I believe that we learned, and I would pass it along too, is that try to have a deeper concept of what you want and really write down the pointed questions you have and go after the people who are articulate, who have a background, instead of just putting a huge thing out there. Be intentional about who you interview.
Yeah. And I'm curious too, now that it is out there and I've been promoting it and I'll continue to promote it far and wide on all my platforms. You got it. What is some of the feedback that you've been getting?
Nothing but great stuff. It's been wonderful. Like, honestly, we had the premiere in Denver in September. And it was beautiful. As we said, we started making this around the end of 2020. So 2021, we released it in 2025. So 4 years of our lives. It's really beautiful to see anything that takes that long of your life not only be finished, but be received with the level of love and acceptance that we've gotten so far.
Mm-hmm. Yes, people have loved it.
I haven't heard anything negative. And it's not just, we know some people that would tell us if they thought it sucked, but they haven't. They've said exactly the opposite, and they've been very impressed. And I echo what Dillon said is having, I think we had like 120, at the premiere, and to see it on a big screen, to have an event like that, and Justin happened to be in town for a conference that week. And so he had brought, some of his people from this conference, and they're cheering for him when he's in the film. And the whole environment was really fun.
We started out with burlesque and stuff.
Yeah.
So
fun.
We had burlesque to start it, and we had a bar and the whole thing. And it was overall a very, very affirming experience. And then we had to take a deep breath and said, okay, how do we get the rest of the world to see this?
Yeah,
right. And that's what we're working on now. So
that's amazing. Yeah. And I am sorry I missed that. I actually was traveling in September and a little bit all over the place, but I appreciate the invitation, Dillon, and I'm glad it was such an affirming experience for all of you. That's awesome. And I'd love a couple more questions. One is there any upcoming projects that you're either working on together or individually that you're excited about that you'd like to mention?
And I have one more film that we need to work on to get out, which is a film we had filmed, I think, right about around the time we started really working with you again, Dillon, on everything that we just put on a back burner. We need to get out. It would be the last film that Spark Erotic has done. Kama and I are considering what Spark Erotic's future is now coming. It's truly, it feels like only now in our industry are we coming out of COVID to some degree, and that people are being willing to really extend themselves more. So it has really been a dead thing for us for the last several years because COVID just wiped our industry out in a lot of ways as far as getting together, doing things in this way. I'm not really sure where Kama and I are going with this right now, but we do have some films in our head and our heart that if we were to do this again, there's definitely some that are still living inside of us we'd like to get out.
I'm always working on something ultimately for me, I've done basically 10 years now of sexuality related filmmaking. My first documentary was on virginity. This one was on ethical non-monogamy. Those are always going to be parts of my life, but I am definitely ready to step into different aspects of filmmaking. Like, love these spaces, love the people in them. Sexuality is an evergreen topic for sure. But like, I'm working on a series right now called I Want to Talk to You, which is just interviewing people, kind of like, do you remember the end of Inside the Actor Studio where he would ask like the same 10 questions? I wanted to do that with people who were important in my life or people I found interesting. I've been working on some podcasts. I've got some other movie ideas, but ultimately the world is in such fucking shambles right now. I'm just trying to find some joy in anything, just trying to find joy in drawing again, trying to find joy in the people in my life. And especially as independent artists, and if you're listening to this and you're an independent artist, it's okay to feel that weight. It might not be going the way that you hoped it was going to go. And that's not necessarily your fault. Like, I know I've done everything in my power to get this movie to come into the world. I know I've done everything in my power to get all of my other projects to come to the world. And they might not be as successful as I hoped they would be, but I don't necessarily feel like that's 100% on me when the world is as it is right now. So, and you can potentially feel that way even if you're not an artist. So it's a normal emotion.
This is a related but adjacent question. But speaking of finding joy, as filmmakers, as talents that I love, all of your work, I'm curious if any of you have seen or have any thoughts on Heated Rivalry. I'm a huge fan.
Oh, yeah, I had not seen the whole thing yet. I had sat down with a girlfriend, started watching it. I do need to finish it. I thought it was fascinating. And I do have to say, for me, I've seen a couple of films recently, or a couple of things recently, that one being one is really being highlighted, that are giving me a little bit of joy because to me, seeing females together and having females have these really deep connections and knowing there is the male loneliness epidemic going on, to have things where we're showing males connecting. And yes, Heated Rivalry was a lot more sexual, but even just the idea of having males connecting the way females do in that really loving, supportive, connecting way. We need more things that are showing men connecting. And yes, we need to show things of men coming together and having these relationships too. We've shown women doing it. We culturally seem to be fine with it, but we're not fine with bisexuality in men or necessarily showing we're fine with gay people, but we don't want to see it. Come on. And so for me to have, it's so important for people in their environment or in their culture to see themselves in main media, not just in this fringe thing that they have to search for, but in main media to be represented is so important. So for me, that was a triumph. Heated Rivalry has been a triumph. Dillon actually turned us on to DTF St. Louis, was it? And although I don't like the ending at all, I love the fact that they're showing these two men coming together as such deep friends in the way that women come together. And unfortunately, they give a really bad message about that at the end. Don't listen to the message in the end of that film or that show. But I love that these things are coming out that are finally showing men connecting in meaningful ways.
Yeah, I haven't seen Heated Rivalry. I've just had a lot of other stuff that I've been watching. But like, ultimately, I agree with Urvi in the context of anytime that you can show men, whether it be in a gay context or even in a friendship context, showing and expressing love to each other, that is a net positive for society. Like, I think all men could have a little bit more representation in the fact that, yeah, I love my friends. And that has nothing to do with sexuality. They provide me so much joy and happiness. And why wouldn't I be able to express that to them?
Yeah, one of my girlfriends, I created like a friendship group nearby, but it was actually one of my friends who is in video editing and that sort of a space in marketing. She's the one that turned me on to Heated Rivalry, not just because of the wonderful sex scenes, which are very tastefully done, but she said it is beautifully shot. The The dialogue is just incredible. The lighting, and she just would not shut up about it. And so finally we watched one of the episodes and I was like, well, this is pretty good. And then I watched the second episode. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, this is really good.
Yeah. It gets deeper, doesn't it?
Yeah. And there's what I also thought was fascinating was the storytelling they did in 6 short episodes was just incredibly well done in the character development. And then I later went and read some of the books, which just added more awe at how Jacob Tierney put that all together. So I was just curious as documentary filmmakers, what your thoughts were. But I just thought I'd throw that in as an extra question at the end.
And then too, Kitty, have you seen Sense8?
Yes, I love Sense8.
That too, I thought was beautifully done as far as watching the interconnections of all these different people's experiences and sexuality and connections, and especially the males again.
Yeah, and I thought it was one of the first beautiful depictions I saw of really polyamory, right? In one of the triad there that they had. Yeah, amazing. Well, awesome. Well, where can people find More Than Monogamy, however you'd like to share that information?
You would just go to www.morethanmonogamy.com. Of course, we'll have links, I assume, in the episode bio and everything like that. From there, the website, not only you can purchase the film, but we also have other resources on the website for books if you were interested in more, the people who we interview. We have sections for more education as well. We wanted, if you watched the movie and you were still looking for a little bit more, we wanted to give our audience some other places that they could go, because at the end of the movie, we're very open about this is just the beginning of your journey, right? Like, this is a movie to start. Please do more research, do look into more things, find your spaces, go out. And if our movie is the jumping off point, great. That's wonderful. So morethanmonogamy.com is where you would find that.
Awesome. And I'll just read what I saw on your website that I thought was very beautiful, that every purchase directly supports independent documentary filmmaking and helps fund future educational content centered on sex positivity, relationship diversity, and honest human connection. It's really beautiful. Well, this has been just an absolute delight and a pleasure to meet all of you, to put our heads together and take time out for this conversation. And just know, again, I'm deeply honored to be a part of the documentary. Could not be happier about that. And either way, I would have had you on. And I just absolutely love the conversation. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for this incredible piece of work that I know you all poured your heart and soul into.
Thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kitty.
Thank you so much for making it as wonderful as it was, because you truly were one of the cornerstones of that documentary.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you like what you heard, are struggling with some aspect of your relationships, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit to work with me as your relationship coach, here's what I invite you to do next. Head over to lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. That's lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply, and book a call to speak with me. I'll get on the phone with you for about 45 minutes, and we'll get you crystal clear on 3 things. Number 1, exactly what's not working well in your relationships right now. Number 2, ideally where you'd like to be and what might be getting in the way. And number 3, the exact strategy to get you there, helping to close that gap. Remember, creating healthy, open relationships does not typically happen by itself. Many often need expert guidance to make it happen. We've helped clients all over the world to feel safe, happy, and secure in open relationships, while not losing their mind or their cherished partners. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. I'm Kitty Chambliss, and let's talk soon.